What's up, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the Back to You podcast. Now, some of you guys have been following me for a long time. I've been talking about a podcast for probably a couple of years. I did one in Miami with a friend of mine, Ashley, a few years ago. We had great fun. But when it came to launching my own one, I have been procrastinating for a long time. And last year, I kind of floated the idea of the Speak Your Truth podcast, and I launched the intro episode, and there was always a block. I never actually kind of followed through with it. A lot of that was my own stuff. You know, we'll talk about a lot of these things in these episodes coming up. But I wanted the perfect background. I wanted the perfect setup, all this kind of stuff, attachment to perfection, which holds us back so much in all of our life, right? And I'm sure you can relate to that. But something still wasn't just feeling right with it. And in the last, in recent times, I should say, I've had a couple of breakthroughs, a couple of awakenings, getting clarity on the next stage of my journey as a coach, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, as a mentor. And recently it became very, very clear to me what I want this podcast to be, what my mission is, what my role is in this world. And that's why the podcast now, as you can see, is called Back to You. And you might have heard that from me if you're following me on social media. If you're not, jump across on Instagram, Aidan O'Brien Official. We're also on TikTok now, I can't believe it. YouTube as well, check it out. And the whole idea of Back to You is, I believe, all the things I've learned for years, and I've been a student of myself for over 15 years. I became an entrepreneur in 2010, and I've been traveling around the world, speaking around the world, building different businesses, failing so much. You can't imagine the amount of failure, the amount of meetings I've done, the amount of no's I've got, and all of that has kind of led, that's what makes me a good coach, I believe, is all that experience. But all of that combined experience of my own successes and failures, plus working with so many clients over the years, it's culminated now into where I am at this point in my life. And what's become very clear to me is getting back to you is actually the only path to take, to focus on. And all the years I've been delivering training and mentoring on how to think, how to speak, leadership, sales, business, mindset, all of that. It's all great. It all has a place. And, I have my program Ascension, which a lot of people really enjoy, and they get a lot of guidance from that. That's only a stepping stone. The ultimate path is getting back to you. That's the ultimate path, getting back to ourselves, because how we move through the world, in my opinion now, which has never been so clear, and I'm still only at the beginning, I think, the further we are away from ourselves, we're really blind to what's going on in the world. We're super blind. We're only allowing ourselves to receive certain things because we have so many programs in our mind. We have so many programs in our heart, even in our bodies. And those programs filter out so much information, so much raw bits of information. And I think the closer we get back to ourselves, the better we can receive all the gifts that are in this world for us, all the lessons, all the learnings, all the moments, all the experiences. And for me, that's what this Back to You movement is about. So I'm currently writing a book. Some of you might know it's also called Back to You, or around that. I don't want to give away the final title yet. And my new program is called Back to You, which is an inner circle membership. It's a 1-year membership. So that's launching September 1st, and I'm super excited about that. And that's because my complete focus right now is getting people back to themselves, back to you. And I'm on this journey back to me. Even though I've been exploring this world of personal development, professional development, this spiritual world, this understanding ourselves, I reckon it's about 15 years at least I'm really diving into that. It started when I was in health and fitness around 2007, 2008, then working on the cruise ships, 2009. I really started to dive into that world, into energy and vibration and frequency and law of attraction and all that kind of stuff. And in 2010, when I became an entrepreneur, I had to figure everything out for myself. And I learned from Jim Rohn. To me, he's the master. And he says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And that's something I've been really focused on the last 12 years, is working on myself. And it's funny, it's taken 12 years to get to this point now where I feel like I have real clarity. Everything along the way felt right. But it wasn't until recently where I've had this kind of breakthrough. This awakening is the only way to describe it, because it truly is. When you have an awakening, everything is just clear. There's no blocks. And even since then, the book has been started. The new program has been begun. It's in pre-launch. If you're watching this, it's probably in pre-launch now. this podcast is finally starting, and it's all with one message, one movement, and that's back to you. So for the last few years, listening to mentors and business experts around the world, they talk about niche, get a niche, speak directly. Your target audience needs to know that you're talking to them. And for me, I always found it very difficult to really get clear on the niche because everything I was teaching applied to so many people. I have clients in their 20s who are chefs or who own restaurants or who are entrepreneurs or who are in a career path and are trying to progress. I have people in their 30s and 40s who are making changes and adjustments. I have people in their 50s and 60s on my programs, and I have people from 20 countries. So how do I find that niche? Everything I'm teaching, whether it's the mind or the heartfulness or how to speak, how to think, it applies to everybody. So I found it very, very hard to niche down. Whereas now the message is very clear. It's for those who want to get back to you, back to yourself, back to your truth. That's who my target audience is. And what I'm focused on with the podcast, with the book, with the program, is I'm not even wanting to sell per se these programs and these things, because I know when you're completely in alignment, and I've seen it over the years, you will draw, you will pull, you will be a magnet to those people who want what you have. So I know the right people, they're already finding me. They've always found me. Like, I've never done traditional marketing really. I've never had paid ads. It's just not my style. How I speak at events is when I'm at an event, someone hears me and says, I want you for my event. Or I have a client and they get a huge outcome, a huge result, and they recommend me to somebody else. That's always how I've built my business. I've never done a traditional. And that always worked out perfectly well for me. And I wasn't even clear. I wasn't even fully clear on what I wanted. Whereas now with the message so clear, I'm super excited. And like I said, I'm only at the beginning of this back to me journey, and I want to take you on that journey. So I want this podcast to be a roadmap for you. And as I'm going through it, I will share it in these episodes, what I'm learning as I'm on this journey back to me. And I want you, those who are ready, those who feel called, those who have that voice within them that says, I want to get back to me. If you're listening to that, that's you, then we're in this together. And that's what this podcast is. Every episode is going to be getting you back to you. Different philosophies, different strategies, different ideas, concepts. Our brain learns through insights. When we get a flash of inspiration, there's a global change in our brain. So it's like you have this moment of realization, you have a revelation, suddenly things change forever. I'm sure it's happened to you when suddenly you look at a person differently and it totally changes how you feel. Or certainly you learn something about a food or what it does or an ingredient and you're like, oh, I don't like that, and you never eat it again. Or suddenly you do some form of exercise and you just feel a certain way and you have a breakthrough and boom, your whole life has shifted. So our brain learns through insights, and I want this podcast to be a podcast of insights for you. And, it's not just going to be me. So a lot of these episodes will be me on my journey and speaking to you directly, but I will also be bringing guests on. And I have a lot of friends all over the world, doing a lot of different things. I'm very lucky to meet some amazing people as I've been traveling the world for the last 15 years. And the people I'll be bringing on to this podcast are the people who can offer you some guidance, some inspiration, some clarity on how to get back to you. I will only have a guest on here if I feel that they're in alignment with their truest version of themselves, if they're living in a way that's close to their truth. So I have no interest in bringing people on, whether they're an expert or not, whether they're famous or not, unless they're living in alignment with what they're talking about. Because for me, the old concept of the podcast, Speak Your Truth, was a big thing for me in that phase of my life, because I believe truth is so important to everything. I believe you need to live your truth. And that's what Back to You is really. But Back to You is just a simpler way of doing it. So I want people in alignment on this podcast, and there will be some amazing guests. There's people I already have in mind for it, and then there's people I haven't even met yet, and they will be on it. But either way, this podcast, guys, is a guidance tool. It's a path, and it's people who want to begin this path. Maybe you've been on it for a while, but we're really starting from the beginning here with this podcast to get you back to you. I think it's the most noble endeavor you can do in your life. I think it's the biggest commitment you can make is to get back to you, because one thing you can rely on is you. You are with you every moment of the day. And I can already hear people saying, what about the job? What about our relationships? What about our children? What about our responsibilities? What about that part? Is that not the most important? Well, I would argue that it's not, because All of those things take into account. What's the one common denominator in all of those things? You. So you take you with you everywhere. Like without you, none of this exists. And most people are living in a way that they're not fully aligned. They're not fully happy. They're not fulfilled. And we'll talk about happiness and fulfillment in a different episode. But most people aren't fully aligned with themselves. They're stressed out. And you can look at someone, you can tell, if they're not healthy looking, they're probably not feeling very healthy. Like typically the external is a reflection of the internal. Your outer world mirrors your inner world. And you can see a lot of people are living in pain in their inner world. And if you know someone like that, send them this podcast. This is a place where they can go, where they can put in their headphones and they can tune in every week to get back to themselves. So I want you to consider that from today. I have all my clients have a mastery journal, by the way. So I encourage you to get a mastery journal, self-mastery journal. And you might call it now the Back to You journal. Everything is back to you. And I want you to be able to document things that resonate with you. Pause this, write it down. Because this journey back to you is something that needs reflection. It demands attention. Because if you neglect yourself, it's like a garden. You might have the most beautiful garden in the world, but if you neglect that garden for a few weeks, a few months, you know how it's going to look. There's going to be weeds everywhere. It's going to look terrible. There's going to be thorns. It's going to be growing wild. And that's what happens to your mind. Your mind goes wild. And then, anything can happen. You don't have control over it. And there's two levels to that. Ultimately, we have no control. That's a different conversation. But what we want to do is we want to be responsible for our mind. We want to be responsible for our heart, our feelings, our body, or the way we think, how we feel. And that demands attention. So by having a Back to You book, a Back to You journal, it allows you to document, to reflect, to take notes. And then as you go back, there's going to be ideas and concepts that you're going to get on this journey, and you're going to forget about them because of life. But you go back and you see it written down. I want you to use that. So I want this podcast to be entertaining. It's not always going to be serious. Because when you go back to you, you're back to that inner child. And an inner child is happy. Look at any child, 5, 6, 7 years of age. They don't have the doubts. They don't have the fears. They don't have the insecurities. They're just happy. They're loving. They're laughing. This is what getting back to you looks like. So this is going to be more fun than probably you've ever had before. Because a lot of times the distractions in the world, they temporarily entertain us. Maybe you watched a good show last night. That's temporary entertainment. Maybe your team just won something big. That's temporary entertainment. But that's not fulfillment. That's not alignment. That's not truth. That's not back to you. That's external. And all of that is ultimately an illusion. Everything in your life that's outside of your heart, your breath, is an illusion. We're receiving it through our senses, but the only thing that's completely true to you that you can rely on is yourself. Everything else can be taken away. Everything else can be taken away. Everything else is dependent on external factors. But how you think, how you feel every single day, your choices, that is lying on your shoulders. That is in your hands. That is up to you. So we want to help you find that inner child again. Find that joy, that laughter, that freedom. Because there's freedom. If you look at 4 or 5-year-olds, they're free. They're completely free. They're dancing, they're singing, they don't care. It's actually everything that we get and collect after that causes the problem. So I don't actually need to teach you anything new. What I'm going to do is help you remove some of the stuff you've collected that you don't need. We're here to help you unlearn some of the things you've collected. Because I always make the joke like batteries came included. You get your favorite Christmas present and then there's no batteries inside, batteries not included. Well, in this life, all the energy we need is actually inside of us. It's already there. Sometimes we don't realize the power we have inside because we've collected so much crap that we can't even see our truth anymore. We've so much weight on our shoulders. We've so much distraction in front of our eyes. We can't actually see who we truly are anymore. And that's what Back to You is about. That's what the book is about. That's what this new program, that 1 year inner circle, it's about surrounding yourself every month. So it's going to be 2 calls every month to get you back to you, to commit to yourself, to get you back in alignment. Because the world is filled with distractions. So unless you set an intention to really allocate time, to create space for yourself, you're always going to be distracted. You're always going to be moving away from you. Always, everything in this world moves you away. And for me, I want to have the courage in this podcast to speak what I really think. Because I don't have time or interest in going back and forth to people arguing. If you believe it, good for you. But I know I also have to speak my truth. And for me, this whole world doesn't give a shit about you in any way, shape, or form. All the things you think are important, they're not. All the things, whether it's your government, your job, anything else, they don't care about you. Okay, everything is designed to keep you away from yourself. Every store you walk into, every shop, all the sugar, all the crappy foods, it's going to move you away from yourself. Everything on TV, all these programs, all these shows, and it's constant distraction. Like you open Netflix or anything else, and I like Netflix as much as anybody else, but if you look at it, as you become more aware and you look at it, it's complete propaganda all over the front of the screen. Everything is about sex. Everything has a narrative. Everything is about a story to keep you engaged in their stuff, spending money with them to help you. When you're watching all of this distraction, when you're engaging in all of this distraction, you're spending money on all of these distractions. You're falling into these traps. You're actually moving away from yourself completely. Everything on social media, even if you look at your Instagram, it's constant ads and suggestions and moving you into narratives. Look at what's trending. It's all about moving you into more distraction. When you're worried about recording that video, that TikTok, that reel, taking that photo of your lunch, you're away from you. You're not in alignment with you. And I include myself in all of this. I also fall into this trap. But because of my awareness, I get out of it pretty quickly, or I fall into less. But I can see, as I observe the world now, so many people are falling into these traps every single day. And you might say, well, it's fine and that's okay. And okay, are you truly fulfilled? Are you happy in all areas of your life? Are you moving forward? Are you healthy? Are you loving yourself? Do you if the answer is yes, fine, everything's working out, but I don't believe that's the case. I talk to too many people every day. I work with so many clients from all over the world, all ages. And just from my awareness and observing the world, I can see people aren't happy. People aren't in alignment. People are filled with self-doubt. People are feeling insecure. People do have shitty relationships. People aren't living life on their terms. They're trapped. And it's because this world is designed to keep you distracted, to keep you sick, to keep you fat, to keep you horny. All of these things where you have to look for external stuff to fill your need. Constant distraction. Even whether it's all the sport, people are so caught up celebrating other teams' successes, their happiness, their joy. They can't wait to go out on the weekend or after the match to celebrate a team's success. Like when I was younger, I was asleep. It seems innocent, but it's not innocent. Because your fulfillment is, if they win, I'm happy. If they lose, I'm sad. How many people do you know like that? When their team loses, they're angry. They're frustrated. They're miserable for the day or for longer. And that's all they talk about. They're so far away from their self. It's unbelievable. And I was like that. For me, growing up a Manchester United fan, like everything was watch the match. Did they win? Yay. Did they lose? No. As much as I'm a fan and I like to see them win, fine. There's no emotional attachment there. It doesn't affect my mood. Any team, it doesn't affect my mood. Someone wins the golf, someone wins basketball, hurling, rugby. How is your happiness dependent on that? And again, some people are watching and say, well, you have to enjoy. Great, there's no one saying you can't enjoy it. But all of that is moving you away from you. You're not fully listening to yourself, tuned into yourself, dedicating the time to yourself. And then you meet people like, oh, I don't have time to work out. Oh, I don't have time to reflect. I don't have time to journal. I don't have time to write my vision. I don't have time to work on my relationships. But they're watching the game, watching the TV show on social media for hours a day. So I call bullshit on all of that. Now, if you're living completely in alignment with yourself, you're truly back to yourself, and you're enjoying the game, there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely fine. I love watching the game too. But having an emotional investment to the nth degree where your happiness is dependent on it is craziness. It's absolute craziness. Watching the show and then all week just talking about that show, and yet you feel crap in your relationship, or you're alone and you can't meet somebody new, and you're not out meeting people, you're not going to a class or going to part of a club or to join a group or to network, and all you're doing is on your phone scrolling at other people, whether it's fitness guys or influencer girls. Oh wow, she has a great body. Wow, she looks great. And all you're doing is scrolling. and you're not doing anything about it, what's that about? It's fine to have some inspiration, absolutely, but how much time are you spent viewing and how much time are you spent changing, growing? So again, some of this is your fault, some of it is not. The whole world is against you, let me tell you. And this is for me, I don't usually make statements like this, but it's true. The world doesn't care about your happiness. Nobody gives a shit about you. Nobody. And no one is coming to save you. This is a decision for yourself. And it's so important that you come from the right place, from your heart, for you. This is about you. And when you do this and you come back to your heart and you get in alignment with you, you're a happier person. And you're so clear of all of these narratives, you can observe them, but you don't get sucked into them. And you become way lighter because your energy, your happiness is not dependent on what show is on, what's on social media, who's posting what team wins. None of that matters to you. You can observe it without attachment. That's the point. No one says you have to become a recluse going into the woods and live like a hermit. But you can live without attachment. You can live without being influenced completely. You're awake. That's what being awake is. You hear about all these people who are asleep. Most people are asleep. Now, a lot of people I know are awake to some level because I surround myself with those people. I've been, from years and years ago, I don't allow myself around those people who are having bullshit conversations, and I just remove myself. But I don't even have to remove myself now because I don't go into it. I only engage with people that surrounds me with the right energy. I only engage with them. I only read books from that place. I only watch, whether it's YouTube or on Netflix, whatever. Now, can I enjoy a movie? I love getting lost in the movie. I love getting lost in a show sometimes, but the majority of my time is on this getting back to me. And since 2008, 2009, 2010, it's been about creating life on my terms. So it was a version of that. So I think everybody's on some level of the path. They're on, some of you are a little bit down the path, some of you are further down the path. Some of you are on the right path, or some of you maybe are a little bit off on a different path, but you're close to the right path. So I would say I was on, if there's a couple of paths, I was in the right group of paths. But now I feel like there's only one. And the one path is back to you. So again, some things might trigger you. Some things you mightn't agree with. That's absolutely fine. But instead of rejecting it, I'd like you to just be curious about it. Like I think curiosity leads to clarity. Clarity leads to confidence. I think my encouragement to you would be just to be curious, just to dive in, see how it applies to you. Maybe all of this doesn't apply to you. That's okay, but be curious enough. Like I always talk about this, I know. It's one of the worst things you can say all the time. It's like condemning yourself to stay stuck. When someone's teaching something, when you're hearing something, oh, I know that. Oh, I already heard that. I know that. That's one of the worst things you can do. That's pure ego. What you have to do if you want to get back to you is to be curious. What can I learn from this? What can I take? Is there some truth in what I've just said for you? Is there an element of truth? That's all it has to start with. You don't have to dive into the deep end. You don't have to agree with everything. But I know I'm speaking from a place of truth because I have no agenda. I have absolutely no agenda. I'm not here to sell you anything. I have no agenda here, only to share my information, my journey, my truth. I have no agenda here. So when you speak from truth, people who are in alignment with truth, people who are seeking truth, they can identify that. So some of you are like really nodding. Some of you are really getting this. You're feeling this. It's resonating with you. Like you feel it in your body. That's because truth vibrates at that level. Like I believe truth goes heart to heart. I think truth is the language of the heart. I think so much other language we use is of the mind. It's of fear. It's of doubt. But language of the heart is truth. It vibrates at a high level. You can feel it. When you hear truth, you're like, that feels right. Now, maybe there's an immediate big reaction. There's a wall. Then you have to really question, what do I believe? What beliefs have I collected? And are your beliefs for your best interest? Are they for your truth? Or are they beliefs you've just collected over time? Because today, there's so many beliefs we collect subconsciously. We're not aware of them at all. Unconsciously, I actually should say. You're completely unconscious. And it's only when you begin the journey to questioning these beliefs, questioning your paradigms, questioning your programs. It's only when you start to question, not for me, not for anybody else, for you start to find truth. The biggest mistake you can make is to believe everything that you think. It's to believe every one of your beliefs. Because the beliefs are just the thoughts you've played so often, they've become emotionalized and they're called beliefs now and they're locked in. Don't believe everything you think. Don't believe everything you believe. Okay? So just be willing to question some of this because there is truth in it. Again, maybe not all of it, but there's, even in this first episode today, there is truth. Truth for you. And the fact that you're even here means you're being called. You hear that whisper. You hear that voice. And that's who this podcast is for. That's what this new book is for. And that's what this program, the Back to You Inner Circle, is for. It's for people who want to listen to that voice and who want to get the answers. They want to get back to truth. Okay, this is going to be a place where you can really become aware of all of the other distractions, all of the other, things in the world that are not for your best interest. And they mightn't be inherently bad. They might be good. That's fine. Okay, not everyone has bad intentions. Not everyone has, an agenda. But it might not be even what's on TV or the shows or social media. Unless it's helping you get back to you, it's maybe not best for you. And just because all your friends do it doesn't mean you need to do it. And just because everyone else is talking about it doesn't mean you have to buy into it. Now, you might think you do because that's the story. That's the fear, FOMO, fear of missing out. But again, that just means you're far away from yourself. When you get back to you, you have no desire for any of this. Like Buddha talks about, like being a Buddha. Buddha is just a title, someone who's awakened. Buddha talks about desirelessness. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't get it because they think, to be human is to have desires. But when you're back to you, when you're really in your truth, completely in your heart, in your body, feeling who you truly are, you actually don't have a desire because you feel like everything you need is already within you. So now when you choose things, you choose them for the right reasons. Things are magnetized. You fall into things. Things land on you, in you, for you. But you're not chasing things. You're not attached to things. You don't have need. You're not trying to cling on to things. That's what being desireless is. That's about letting go of attachment. It's just being. Just being in yourself is enough. Now, again, I'm at the beginning of my path to this. I'm not here saying I am there. But that is the place to go. That's the only place to go, is to get back to that truth, that place of real power of the heart where you have no needs. And then you're choosing for that, just for the choice of it, just because you can, because it is, because it feels right. And there's no need. It just is. So I think that's a good place to end the first episode. We went deep off the bat. With these podcasts, I have some ideas for the episodes, but I'm just always going to go with it. I have to trust that process myself and not try and control and want to control the outcome and how you receive it. My wish is that you receive it, that you listen to your heart. If you want to follow me on other platforms, check me out on Instagram. We're building, obviously, YouTube as well. I do a lot of videos on YouTube now as well. Check that out. The book is coming soon. The program Back to You is launching first week of September. If you're watching this after September, you can send in the link below. You will see a link to set up a call to hear more about that program. That's all about getting you back to you. Everything we're doing here is just to get you back to you. And I'm so excited for this journey. I feel so clear about it. There's so much more we're going to dive into as well. And everything is connected for one path. So I really hope you're enjoying it. If you feel called to, again, like I said, be sure to follow, watch, look out for the next episodes, watch the YouTube videos, connect with me on Instagram. If you like what you're hearing here, you can comment, you can leave a review. I'd love to hear from you. So send a DM. I always do my best to answer the DMs. So send me a message and let me know that you're enjoying the content. Let me know what you like. If you have questions, you can ask questions and I can cover that in other podcasts as well. Remember, when your heart wants it, it's for you. And if your heart wants it, it's actually already yours. And that'll make more sense as we go further. So thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.